Get it on, got to get it on. No choice but to get on, mandate, get on. And welcome to Take a Knee. It's our inspirational podcast. We try to inform, we try to inspire, try to help you get a little further down the road, whatever road you'd like to be on. Phillip Stutts is our guest. He has a book called Fire Them Now, The 7 Lies Digital Marketers Sell, and the truth about political strategies that help business win. Perfect timing for you, Phillip. Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about you. Let's get set on your background and campaigns you've worked on and your history, and then we'll get right up to real time.
Yeah. So grew up in Alabama, lived in Washington, D.C. for about 20 years, working on political campaigns, did about 4 presidential campaigns, and then did advisement and ads for a bunch of campaigns once I started my company, all on the Republican side. Ran governor's races like Bobby Jindal in Louisiana, and worked on both Bush campaigns as well. That's sort of the quick and dirty of it.
Has stuff changed in that arena more in the last 18 months to 2 years than it did in the last 18 years?
Yeah, it's a really good point, Adam. I mean, it's all come down to, we have a digital marketing firm, that's what I have, and that's where the changes happened. And I mean, you even saw this this week with Donald Trump announcing his reelection, and he announced the guy that would run that reelection was the guy that ran his digital marketing in the first campaign. And so really everything has been folded into the digital marketing arena more than anything else. It's fascinating. I mean, it used to be the TV guys ran everything, or the mail guys, right. All that stuff is just almost obsolete in this day and age. And it comes down to how we target and run ads and build, campaigns through the digital mechanisms.
So everything was like, I was saying to somebody earlier today, my kids will never dial a rotary phone in their entire life. They're 11. They never stand unless they go to some sort of Alexander Graham Bell Museum or something, and they have an exhibit you can monkey around with. But I mean, we're in an analog world. I mean, literally handing out flyers and stuff, and it's now. I don't know. Like, are candidates going to have to hit the trail anymore? Like in 10 years, they need to go places. Is everything's going to be sort of digital and beamed in?
I think you've got to have that personal touch, but what you're saying,
but we're thinking like us now.
I know
we wouldn't have seen any of this coming 10 years ago.
So it's going to be like somebody's avatar in their house talking to them about a political issue. It could be.
I don't even know. Like, I'm trying to think of what percentage of the country is even swayable now.
Oh, it's so much smaller. I mean, this whole gun debate that we're having right now, at least 90% of the country has decided on that issue. But I mean, to go back to the technology part, your kids will never probably drive a car. I mean, right. That's really where we're going. And I talk about this in the book, that disruption that's happening. A friend of mine is from LA, Peter Diamandis. He is the guy that started the X Prize.
And I love that guy.
Yeah, he's crazy. But he has this great slide in what he teaches, and he shows what the world, like New York City street in 1903 and a New York City street in 1913. And in 1903, it's all horse and buggy and one car. And then 10 years later, it's all cars and one horse and buggy, right?
Right.
And so in that, we're in this moment in time, Adam, like where disruption is absolutely occurring everywhere. And I put this in the book. Like, people laugh at the whole, automated cars coming down the pike, but it's not really that, because that's done. Like, that's been decided in the next 5 years. That's what, the way it's going to work. But it's like, what are the second order consequences of that? And like, maybe something you'll like you can't get a parking ticket anymore because those, the automated cars are going to be going the speed limit. That we may not even have like stop signs or traffic lights, because they'll just sense when to stop and when not to.
Right.
And the other thing is, like, where do EMS workers go when there are no traffic accidents anymore, or rare traffic accidents? And then the second order consequence of where do we go with like organ donors if there are no car accidents anymore? And so there's this crazy amount of disruption happening. And what I found, and it was over the last 2 years, I started interviewing CEOs, and they don't really get that everything is about to change. I mean, I'm not kidding on this. We won't have land animals in about 20 years. They will be able to 3D print meat. And that is go to YouTube. You can look it up. It's crazy.
So a million things. One is I'm just literally getting into this with I think the Waymo. So I'm going to Austin for South by Southwest in a couple of weeks to interview the Waymo guy, I think, who's making all these cars or working all these cars and everything. And so literally yesterday I was on an airplane with Mike August, a guy I work with. We're having long sort of discussions about. So as a guy, so it's kind of a weird thing. So as a guy who has a bunch of race cars and likes to race cars, and people go, you're not going to want this. It's like, I am, because 3 times a week I'm at a signal and it's red and the person's supposed to be turning right and I have to honk at them and go. And they're like, what do you want? It's like, the signal's red, but you've stopped, and it's legal to turn right, and maybe you're from a place where it's not legal, or maybe you're illegal, and you don't want to get pulled over, but just go. Or they'll go, like, honk, and there's a sign that says, like, has a right turn arrow on red with a slash through it, but in small writing under it says, except for Saturday and Sunday, and it's Sunday.
Right.
So go. And everyone's like, well, you don't want driverless? Yes, I do, because I'm tired of sitting behind that asshole.
Right, and your insurance will go up a ton if you want to drive your cars, but you can afford that, so who gives a shit? But ultimately, this is kind of this disruption is coming everywhere, and people have their heads in the sand, and they're not looking at it as how – listen, I'm not kidding when I tell you this. Every business in this country is going to be affected, whether it's directly or indirectly.
Is the disruption – tell me if I'm wrong. Change used to happen over the course of a period of time because it was a mechanical analog kind of a change. Like we had to develop materials, and materials, first airplanes were covered with canvas, and then we covered them with the sheet metal. But we didn't have titanium. Mm-hmm. So when we developed titanium, and then we figured out what titanium did and how it stressed and what it did under heat and cold and everything else. But it was like a pretty long process. And before you know it, we get from canvas and biplanes to the SR-71. But that was a pretty big chunk of change in there. The computers we're just skipping past everything, right?
Everything.
So the computer is skipping us past all the analog stuff that we used to have to work out. And now, I think it was like a guy who was born in, 1919 could see a biplane, and he could also see in his older years an SR-71 Blackbird. But it was like raising the heat on a jacuzzi so slowly. It was never shocked anybody who stepped into it. Now it's shocking because the computer makes it go so fast, right?
That's it. And I mean, what I try to, or if I'm going to relate it back to what I wrote about is, in politics, Adam, we have, I would look at politics like a football game. We have ultimately the end of the game, which is election day for us. And so what we're trying to do in politics and political campaigns is constantly be on offense and try to run campaigns and be on offense and get our candidates elected. And what I find in a lot of businesses, especially on the marketing end of it, is that they don't have this deadline like we do in election day. And what that deadline does is it forces us to innovate constantly. It forces us to figure out how a voter works and behaves and how we talk to them and really go after them in a very, very targeted way to make that candidate successful. And too many times I see in businesses, they go, we'll get to it sometime. We'll do this, we'll do that. They just don't have the speed in which we work. And I think that was ultimately what I found in writing the book was that this is a very big frustration in the marketplace. Look, you're a CEO right now. I'm sure you look at the digital market space, something you're very prevalent in, but see frustrations in it and things like it's just moving so fast. The technology changes so quickly. Facebook comes to our office in Washington, D.C. all the time and says, we just changed the rules again. This is how we're going to, this is how you're going to be able to target voters or customers on our corporate side. And it's just crazy. I've never seen anything like it. It goes so fast right now.
Yeah, it's sort of the everything all the time and all at once kind of worries me a little bit for the kids because I've really come to understand that delayed gratification is sort of the key component building block of like maturity and satisfaction and even happiness. This sort of, this sort of thing where you would, back in the old days when I was a little kid, you'd go to Sears and you'd see like a train set or a bicycle or something, and you'd go, man, look at that bicycle, and man, and then you'd go, what month is it? And they'd go, it's September, and you go, God, Christmas is. When's Christmas? God, it's like, can we get it for Christmas? Maybe. Well, let's just go look at it again next week. You just look at it, you like covet it, and just stare at it. But of course, Christmas morning was a big deal if that bike was under the tree. And if you could just go to Sears and not go to Sears, just go online and go to Amazon and look at a digital picture of a bike and point at it and click on it, and it would show up at your front door 2 days later, I don't think you'd have the same relationship with that bicycle. I know that bicycle would be constantly left out in the driveway and be gathering dirt and dust and possibly get stolen or whatever. There's no way you have that relationship with that thing, whatever it is, when it just shows up.
Right.
And that part where you really kind of work hard and work up an appetite and earn that big steak dinner at the end of the hard working week or whatever, versus Grubhub just bringing it by your house twice a day, there is little to no appreciation for it. And it's something that I wrestle with all the time, which is having to yell at everyone who lives under my roof, like, stop bringing everything in all the time whenever they want it. It leads to a dissatisfaction and a weird kind of a restless emptiness, like a weird kind of emptiness, like some sort of Twilight Zone where the guy can have whatever he wants all the time. I want women all the time. I want sports cars all the time. And of course you kill yourself because the women, the sports cars, the what have you, it never makes you happy. Like all those stories, the sort of parables that were always like, he has a genie, he can make wishes, he can do whatever. Those never work out. And there's a reason why it never works out. Life really is that way. The way to really enjoy life is you love a 63 split window Corvette. You bust your ass for 5 years, save your money, get one that needs some work on it yourself. And then when you go into that garage on a Sunday and look at it, something washes over you that the guy who says, oh, my stepdad's rich, so he bought me 2 of them. That guy will never have that sensation.
Yeah, it's almost like this, and this being a dad. Like, as a dad, my little girl is 5 years old. I've probably done more with her than my 2 parents ever did with me, and I grew up in a great 2-parent household, right? I
laugh every time I think of that.
But my thing is, we talk about, if you have 2-parent household, you're in a much better place for success in life. I don't think it's that way anymore based on like what you're just saying. Like, it's not only that you have to have 2 parents, they have to be actively involved and then trying to, hold these standards in place so there's not this instant gratification on everything you do. If I'm to look at this on how we do it in like politics, I always look at it as in failure. Mm-hmm. Every politician pretty much loses at least once. And so they have to, they may want the shiny object of that office, but they've got to go. I mean, think about this. In politics, we're like the ultimate startup company, Adam. We start with a candidate, which is like the product, and we have zero money, no name, ID, or brand, right? And you have to raise all this money, and then you have to spend it all in a 9-month period to get somebody elected. And it doesn't always work. And, people that do startup companies, they have some reasonable sense that they're going to be successful, right? They have a great idea and they think they've got the money behind it and all that stuff. But on politics, man, I mean, we start at zero chance of winning. And then you try to get up to 100%. But usually by election day, you're still at the most 51%. And you try to tell some entrepreneur those odds, and they'd never run in a million years unless they have all the money in the world to run. I mean, you look at like what Trump did, like the odds of him when he started of actually winning were, unbelievably high.
Well,
of losing.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
And so it's crazy that we have to do this, but every politician has wanted that shiny object, wanted it now, wanted it in that 9-month period, but at some point they've lost a race.
Well, here's a bunch of political ideas. Questions,
all right,
comments for you. First off, it used to be that you were, when it came to politics, it was a little like the military. You start off as a private, and then you go to corporal, and then you go to sergeant, and then you get to captain, and then you work your way up to general, 4-star general. And you saw Obama, and Obama didn't have a lot of experience. He kind of just leapfrogged and hopped up to president. And then, of course, Trump had no experience and just sort of leaped up to president. So might we be done with the pecking order? Like I'm just sitting here talking to somebody who works for the mayor's office about Garcetti, and I'm like, what's wrong with that asshole? This place is a garbage pit. Why can't he clean this place up? We have the worst traffic in the world. And they're like, he's thinking about other things. I'm like, he thinks he's going to be governor? No, he's going for president. Mm-hmm. Like, wait a minute. He can't run Los Angeles. He gets to run the country? Yeah, he's going to president. Well, why doesn't he just fuck up California and be the governor of California and fuck that up for a while and then fuck up the nation? So, no, he's going right up there. And it's like, so is this the new world order where people are just going to go, I'm running for president? Like, I'm Oprah. I'm running for president. Like, I'm just going for president.
Yeah, it's
now.
Absolutely. Trump broke that ceiling.
Right. I mean, so that's the new world order.
Absolutely. And you've seen Mark Cuban flirt with it.
Right.
You're now seeing Oprah flirt with it. Yeah. Garcetti was in South Carolina last week, already campaigning.
Wait, wasn't here cleaning up the garbage and helping out with the traffic?
I have to say this. Wait
1 second.
Yeah.
Is Oprah flirting with running for president, or are we flirting for her?
Oh,
because
totally.
I don't feel like I've heard her say anything. Everyone else has said something.
She came out this week and said that if God tells her to do it, she'd do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
But it's interesting. After 20 years in Washington, D.C., my wife and my little girl and I moved to Florida because, well, there's no taxes in Florida. And basically, Washington, D.C. hated me for making money and being successful and being conservative. You can't live there if you're conservative. And so
you can't really?
You're ostracized pretty bad in the town. But anyway, and so we moved to Florida, and we live in this quiet little beach town in the redneck Riviera up in the Panhandle. And it's great. Everybody's really sweet and kind and nice. And then I got here over the weekend for the book promo, and I had to go to Koreatown the other night for dinner. Mm-hmm. And I had to stop at a Target on the way there, pick up something. And I was picking up a blender, and I go into the Target. Trash was everywhere, all over this parking lot.
Tell me which Target this was approximately, or just so I can kind of picture it. Just
was
on the way to Koreatown?
The oil, the oil refinery things, and I don't know.
That's like halfway between the airport?
Yeah, I was standing at the airport. Yeah, so I was standing at the airport. And I walk in, and there's a guy standing there, and I said, where can I find a blender? Because I just travel with a blender, and I have to eat that way. And the guy literally grunts at me, and then tells me electronics. And I go, No. I know it's in kitchenware, but like where electronics. I'm like, What is going on here? And of course, it's in kitchenware. And I come out, and the first I see this big billboard, and it said, hire this lawyer. He's got $500 million in verdicts already. Right. And from a marketing perspective, and by the way, on that drive, I saw 2 more of these on the buses. And I thought to myself, from a marketing perspective, well, it's pretty smart. But holy cow, like they are targeting the poorest people and going after the most basic element of what they want without earning it, right? And I've never seen anything like that.
LA is third world now. I mean, it is a goddamn dump. It is a dump. The two billboards you see when you go through those parts of town are, I'll win this settlement for you, and we'll replace any tooth for $22. That's the other one that's semi-depressing. But people have no idea what a trash heap this place is and how goddamn depressing it is, and how most people don't even speak English who live in L.A. So, like, if you go into a Target, you can't describe the word blender to somebody who doesn't speak English who was wearing the Target vest. It is insanely depressing. And you have no choice but to either live like sort of on the outskirts of town and then just kind of put your blinders on and try to speed through the dump part. But the homeless encampments are spilling out all over the place now. So I can't imagine a more poorly run city than this city. But I also can't imagine
Garcetti should be president.
I can't imagine him running anything. But And I don't know how that works. So you were going to tell Garcetti, you were going to say something about him.
No, he just was in South Carolina recently.
So he's going to run for president.
He's testing the waters right now.
So one of his planks would be like, have enough homeless people.
I'm not paying
I
attention
increased
to
it tenfold in Los Angeles.
I don't know.
Well, I live in Los Angeles, and it's just an insanely, horribly, poorly run city. I mean, any city that has the traffic record six years in a row worldwide, but doesn't seem to make any attempts to alleviate the traffic. That I don't mind the traffic part. I mind the part where there's no attempts to fix the traffic. That's the part that's confusing to me. But predictions then. So Trump's going to go for a second term. I have some thoughts. I'll give you my two thoughts. I really don't know anything about politics, but I do know politics is sort of like the MMA, which is like 10 years ago, it was like a little group of nerds, of folks that liked that kind of combat sport, didn't know no one else. You know, people, if you'd mention the octagon to people, they just have no idea what you're talking about. Now people know the names, know the people, like know how it works, draw big crowds. Like it's like never has there been more involvement with politics than there has been in the last year, 2 years. But Trump, I have like two thoughts. One thought is if people are working and the economy's good and the stock market's good and like things are generally working sort of financially, then he's probably going to get reelected. There's another part that's kind of interesting that the Democrats will probably want to work this angle, which is like, we can't handle any more arguing. Like, just get rid of this guy because I just want, like, it's like sort of like giving in because you just want peace. You know what I mean? Like, like your daughter's going, I just want a box of cookies for dinner. And you're like, it's not healthy. It's not good for you. And then at some point you just throw the cookies there and go, fine. I just want to watch TV. I can't take it anymore. Like, there's an element I think that the country might have if the Democrats can keep this going for another 3 years, which is like, no more. I want to turn on CNN and hear about an earthquake in Honduras. I don't want to hear any more about Trump.
There's a lot of fake outrage.
It's got to be fake. It's got to be fake. I
attribute it to a lot of narcissism too.
Oh, everybody
is upset over everything. If Trump says something contradictory, which he does every day, it is people are up in arms over it, and they're telling no one, and they're doing nothing about it. If they really were that upset, go do something about it. But they're not. They just want to talk about it, which means it's a narcissistic quality of what they're trying to do.
It's all roads. Right. I want to write a book called All Roads Lead to Narcissism because I've always been screaming this. Every single one of these things leads to narcissism.
Sure.
Also, I'm assuming most people that are going nuts about Trump all the time, I don't know if they believe a lot of the stuff they're talking about, meaning there's plenty of reasons to not be happy with Trump. But like when you are a correspondent for CNN and you go, he wants to make all teachers have guns all the time. It's like, that's okay, but that's not what he said. Mm-mm. So do you think he said that? And you watched the clip of what he said. So your takeaway is this, or are you just kind of adding a couple of zeros to the bill and just going, that's
right. This is a ratings bonanza for 2-3 years now. And the old look, I go on cable TV all the time. And so, I'm biting the hand that feeds me. But every time I'm on, every single topic for the last 3 years has been Donald Trump. And there's a reason. It makes him a lot of money. And, if I go on certain networks, they will tell me they will tell me this. If you want to get on and be, interviewed by us, you have to take this position against or for Trump. And I go, well, that's really not that's what I do. If Trump does something dumb, I'll say it on TV. I don't care. But if he does something smart, I'll also say it. And they're like, no. You got to be all in for him because we have to pit you against somebody else. Well, it's outrageous. Like, but they're feeding the beast. And so this goes back to what you were saying. it has led to this society that goes, maybe Trump has a good idea on something, and then they go, oh, wait, Trump came up with that? No, we're against it. It's the worst thing in the world. Everybody's going to die if we do it. I mean, basically, that's what happened. So it doesn't matter. People are just dug in. And again, people have already made up their mind, the majority of Americans on Trump. Either they like him, they don't like him. There's a very small pocket of swayable voters if it came back to a re-election.
What do you think that number of swayable voters might be percentage-wise?
Oh, I think it's like 10%.
10%.
Yep.
But that 10% in a world where people lose the popular vote and win.
Well, where is it located, right?
And where is it located?
Sure.
But yeah, these couple percentage points are
sure. If it's 15% in Ohio, that's right. You're going to put a lot more of your financial resources from the campaign standpoint into that kind of state.
Are the Democrats deciding that? I mean, it appears to me, but I don't know. You can tell me. I think they've sort of figured that the New World Order is we're going to go like half Hispanic in the next however many years. And that these folks, if we can get them into our tent, this is going to be good for our chances of being reelected. And the reason I'm saying that is because I've lived in Los Angeles my entire life. And I've never heard so much talk about undocumented neighbors. Went from like aliens to illegal aliens and undocumented. Now it's literally undocumented neighbors now. And I've never seen so many people burn so many calories on this thing that formerly never came up. So it's kind of a weird thing. It's like you come walking into your kitchen and your wife's wearing a Pittsburgh Steelers jersey, and you're like, when did that come about? And she's like, what do you mean? I love the Steelers. And you're like, you brought them up before. And you're like, hey, I got a Steelers beanie too. And he put the beanie on, and you're like, wait a minute, you've never even talked about the Steelers. I brought them up from time to time. I'm a big fan. And you're like, you're a big fan. And then the doorbell rings, and Ben Roethlisberger's standing there, and you're like, oh. You're coming over for dinner? And like, yeah. And then you go to your wife. Oh, so that's what and she goes, no, it has nothing to do with that. I'm just doing what's right. And you go, you're doing what's right, but you've never brought it up before, never happened before. Like it wasn't, DACA, legal this, borders, whatever. There was never a strong push from the left on sort of open borders and, dreamers and all. It just wasn't something that some years ago was discussed. As a matter of fact, we were kind of unified. Like, hey, it's got to be two-pronged here. We got to beef up the border, and then we got to find these corporations that are employing all these illegal folks, and we got to shut them down. That was Bill Clinton. Then all of a sudden, it's undocumented neighbors and dreamers and open borders. So I'm assuming because politicians want to get elected and don't seem to be that interested in whatever whatever it's going to hurt or help or cost or benefits or anything. They have a mission, get reelected. Both sides. I'm assuming they're looking at votes, not they've suddenly fallen in love with Hispanics in the last 20 minutes.
Totally. I mean, the population is definitely. I think Hispanics have passed African Americans in this country. And your antenna is right. That is exactly what it is. It's all about votes. It's all about how they can get the votes. And that's why everybody said Trump couldn't win in 2016 because the demographics had changed so much and the Democrats had pandered for so long to the Hispanic population and to African Americans. And they said, oh, this is great. We have the numbers on our side. And what they didn't realize was they made the false assumption that the people that came out and voted for Barack Obama were going to come out in the same numbers for Hillary Clinton, and they didn't. And what they also didn't really think about was that there was this white middle class in Ohio and Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania that came out, in higher numbers than it had, in previous elections. So they were very motivated, and with Hillary, they weren't. But the demographics are on their side. So if they got the right candidate that fit the profile of how to push out voters. This is what I do, so I kind of get this. Then, they would be in a very good position for a very long time. The Democrats would on the electoral front.
in the prognostication department, bringing up things like autonomous driving cars, driverless cars, and organ donation. It's like, oh, yeah, that's right. No more accidents, no more organs to donate. And then I sort of have this kind of approach to life, which is it sort of has this way of sorting itself out, which is the technology for the driverless cars means no more horrible accidents and no more livers to harness. On the other hand, the technology is such that we can farm these livers on the side of sheep in labs now, and we'll make the tech. So what the technology takes away, the technology gives, and sometimes tenfold.
So, and I explain this in the book in the introduction, but I have an incurable disease. And it's an esophageal disease.
I was going to get to the traveling blender part of your life.
Well, that was why I needed
I let you go by when you said, I'm going to a Korean barbecue place and I'm bringing a blender. I was like, I don't bet you just order Mai Tai. But sorry, tell me about it.
Well, and the reason I talk about this is that I have this incurable disease. It's called achalasia. It's basically an autoimmune disease that attacked my esophagus. My esophagus doesn't work. I've had 3 major surgeries on it. I've had 15 minor procedures on it. My esophagus is shredded.
What do you need your esophagus for?
Well, you have a muscle. Your muscle in your esophagus pushes the food down into your stomach. So if I eat anything, it lodges in my esophagus, and I can't get it down unless I drink a lot of water.
So it's not pushing it down.
It does not push it down. And mine had curved some, so food was just staying in there even after I could drink a lot of liquids, and it was eroding my esophagus. So the last surgery I had, they basically cut a quarter of my stomach out and wrapped it around my esophagus and pulled it straight and stapled it all together. I'm a mess down there. But I've assembled, this is kind of the impetus for the book, which is I was diagnosed with this disease in 2012, and I didn't do anything about it for about 5 years. And I basically ate the same foods that were attacking my gut and caused the autoimmune disease. And I was doing all these, the same thing. I was taking tons of medicines that, with every good quality any medication has, it's got a horrible quality. And
sure.
And so I was just taking medications. And I'm being treated at the Mayo Clinic. And this is what the Mayo Clinic does. They pat you on the head. And they say, here's some medicine. We have 100 other patients to see today. See you later. But I just took their word for it. And then I finally decided, just like the disruption, I was going to disrupt my disease. And so about a year ago, I wrote an article in Inc. magazine, and it got picked up. This researcher found it, and it kind of led this circuitous route for me. And I'm about to, in the fall, I will start a one-man clinical trial, the first one ever, at Johns Hopkins University, where they will insert stem cells into my esophagus to try to regenerate the muscles and the nerves to get them working again. They have no idea if it'll work. I have no idea. But in part of this process that I've gone through over the last 12 months, I was introduced to a doctor at Wake Forest University named Tony Atala. And he's got this TED Talk that's got millions of views and all this stuff. But what he is doing is growing organs now. Livers, kidneys, and he believes in the next 10 years we can literally just grow them, and then you can have a kidney or a liver transplant, and it's not from a donor. It is literally grown in a lab from stem cells, and then they can put them in your body, and it would match the kind of match a person needs for those kind of organs. My problem is that with an esophageal disease, it's like there's no money in rare diseases. So my disease is like 1 out of 100,000, but everybody that has this disease is like in their 70s.
Right.
So it's probably in the 1 out of a couple million for me. So there's just no money involved in this, right? No research, nothing, and so they're not going to be growing esophaguses anytime soon. And so the stem cell track is kind of where I'm going down.
What? So the blender.
Yeah.
I'm imagining you must pulverize your food and drink it?
Not every time. So I do shakes for breakfast and lunch every day. But usually I'm on an insane diet.
What is the diet?
So there was a book that came out last year. It's the most fascinating book I've ever read, called The Plant Paradox by a guy named Stephen Gundry. And he basically said, you got to cut out. I mean, some of this is obvious, right? But potatoes, sugar, but also nightshade vegetables like squashes and cucumbers and tomatoes. And you got to cut out beans, a bunch of nuts. I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, literally, I can eat like avocados and salad is basically my diet. But when I'm on that diet, it's hard when I'm on the road. I'm on the road for 2 weeks, the book right now. But when I'm on that diet, I got off all of my medications for the first time in 5 years. Like literally no medicines, no acid reflux, nothing. Everything went away. Everything.
So I think sometimes when people go, well, I'm on serotonin reuptake inhibitors or whatever, and I started doing Bikram yoga, and I stopped taking my Valtrex or whatever it is. All right. But that's a little bit emotional, psychological, like, well, did you really need it in the first place? Sure. Or did you just stop doing it and you kind of got in your head, or the placebo effect or whatever? But for you, it's much more mechanical, because acid reflux is acid reflux.
And
it's
the
like
surgeries I've had, they've ripped me open. I describe my esophagus looks like an upside down pom-pom. I mean, they've just shredded me. So acid comes up there no matter what I eat.
You know the difference between not needing to take your medication, really.
Yeah.
Or, again, versus I'm on some sort of mood-enhancing whatever, and I'm in a good mood today. But that's not technical.
Yeah, and
clinical.
Like election day, I'm on a deadline, which is I've had so many surgeries that if I have, I probably can have one more, and after that, I'll have a feeding tube for the rest of my life. So, and that's sometime the next 10 years. And so I'm 43.
What is the protocol with the diet? And again, yeah, I don't know why all roads lead back to the avocado. Like, I was like, you got to eat an avocado. Like, I'm good because I love avocados. But it is weird. You call the nightshade vegetables. Like, it is weird when you're talking to someone about the difference between a yam and kale or something. And you're going, I thought fruit was fruit. And they're like, don't drink orange juice. It's nothing but sugar. And you're like, oh, I thought orange juice was part of a healthy breakfast or whatever. But the vegetables, I think we all kind of get the difference between a baked potato and kale. But what's the difference between a tomato and kale? Or an avocado and a tomato, or a cucumber?
They all contain lectin, which is a protein that attacks the gut. And you probably have a gut of steel. But
I'm the weirdest guy in the world. I piss everyone off around me when I explain to them I've never had Mylanta, I've never eaten a Tums, I've never had indigestion, I've never had heartburn, I've never had reflux. All the stuff you see the commercials for, like, oh man, a pepperoni pizza. Right. Now heartburn, and I don't even know what it is.
Yeah,
it's such a weird genetic thing, I guess.
I'm skinny, you can tell, but I have a fast metabolism, so I've been able to eat whatever I want, whenever I want, my entire life. Unfortunately, once I went in and had all these food allergy tests, and I was just allergic to a ton of shit.
Do you feel like so the Mayo Clinic is, that's the industry standard,
right?
And you go into the best they have to offer, and they don't talk about diet, lifestyle kind of stuff.
Nothing proactive. It's all reactive.
And the thing that's, the reason I'm kind of really listening closely is because you're Republican. I'll just call you a Republican strategist who lives in Florida. You're not like some guy who's like from Hempville and sells moccasins online and is talking about bad vibes. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people, it's like I listen with half an ear, because half of it is like, okay, and the other half is like, red meat has bad vibes. And I'm like, no, I don't know that, but keep talking, guy. Like, you're not supposed to be talking this way.
But I can eat red meat.
What I'm saying is I believe what right. When I hear, my mom is kind of a hippie.
Right.
And when I hear her talking this way, I sort of dismiss it because it's coming from this place. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You're not coming from that place. You're not that guy.
No.
You're the guy who's experienced this.
Yeah, and I've decided the only way I was going to figure this thing out was I had to take control of it. And literally, like, they told me at the Mayo Clinic, like, we see 100 patients a day. Like, what do you expect?
Why doesn't the Mayo Clinic, who is the industry standard, why aren't they a little further down this road of saying, like, hey, you should change your diet, and there's a book, we recommend this book to you. Like, why do you have to learn it on a TED Talk? Why do they?
It's literally because they see 100 patients a day, and they can't see that many and try to get to the core of what's going on with that person and what's going on with their disease. So
you're saying when you eat properly or strictly and properly with this diet that you don't have to take your medications and you don't have a made-up disease.
Right.
And so it's that impactful.
It is that impactful.
And just for fun, the foods that contain the nightshade, as you call them, does they bloom at night, or what's the night?
That's a damn good.
Gary, find out why the nightshade ones are called nightshade ones.
I don't know why, but I mean,
tomatoes,
cucumbers, squashes. Those with, I guess, with the seeds in them.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I've been eating, and the other thing was like dairy. Like dairy is every test I've taken was like, ooh, you shouldn't be eating dairy. I'm like, well, fuck, I've been eating cheese every day of my entire life. No wonder, like, my body like turned and attacked, a part of my my esophagus. So
should we all get a workup? Should we all go in and find out what we shouldn't be eating?
Yeah,
like
of course. Like, but why would you if you
Where
don't?
does one even do that? I don't even know where.
Well,
there
you go. So I had to hire what's called a functional doctor, and of course, you know this. By the way, my healthcare is, I have one daughter, a wife. Both are very healthy, and then me, and we pay close to $3,000 a month in healthcare costs. I went out and got a functional doctor. This is what's called a proactive doctor. He takes all these tests on you and takes allergy tests. And like, dude, I did poop tests and blood tests and urine tests, and I just did everything. And they sent them all back, and they came back, and it laid out everything that I was allergic to. What I needed, to get down and all those things. And, look, exercise is very important, but the diet's like 75%. The exercise is 25%.
Nightshade?
It appears unclear, but there is speculation that these types of items tend to grow most at night, on needing the shade.
Makes sense.
They should just call them nightshade. Oh.
Yeah. My wiener's that way. Kind of peaks about 4 a.m. So all over the place with you. So now,
we are.
You need the blender to travel with the blender.
Yeah.
And you have to buy a blender when you roll into town?
No, I usually travel with one of those little travel ones. But I was in New York because I was doing all the promos for the book in New York. And I had Sunday I had a 6 a.m. hit on Fox and Friends. And so I'm up at 4 a.m. trying to run this blender so I can get some food in me. And it explodes in the hotel. And so
what's in your shake?
So the guy that wrote this book has got all these, he now has kind of he has powders and different things for it, but it's sort of a polyphenol, which is like, red fruits and stuff like that. He kind of grounds them down to a powder. There's a green powder. And then really it's like probiotics and prebiotics, because that helps ensure you have a healthy gut. Mm-hmm. And then I'll throw some spinach in there and an avocado. I mean, it's disgusting. There's no sugar in it at all. Yeah. I mean, it tastes awful.
Well,
then I'll put some like hemp protein in there, because I can't do dairy protein.
It's so kind of the drink. I mean, the shake, the smoothie. It's kind of a metaphor for life, which is, if it tastes good, it's not really working. Like, it's not like, I remember there's a time when all these like Jamba juices and juice places were popping up, and I'd be like, oh, let's see, I'll take the orange sherbet mango with the, put the protein supplement or whatever, and I'd be drinking this big tub, and I'm like, well, this thing, I don't know what I was doing ordering shakes. This thing's every bit as good as, I mean, it's not as good as a chocolate shake, but it's pretty darn good, and look at me. And it's like, yeah, it's no good. And it's like, it's no good because it tastes good. Right. If it tastes good, it's no good. Like the rule, it's like breakfast bars. Like, I don't care what you say, if you're enjoying eating that bar, it is not good for you. I have Vinny Tortorich, the nutritionist trainer, sitting next, and you go, my wife eats those things, and I'm like, I got to get her off these things. And I'm like, do you have a breakfast bar that is actually not bad? I mean, it doesn't even have to be good for you, but it's not bad for you, because she's eating like the chewy s'mores bars or whatever, Quaker Oats. I was like, these are horrible. They're like a candy bar. It's like, no. There's only one that's good for you. And I'm like, okay, what is it? I hope she likes peanut butter. It's like, it's just buffalo meat. It's like, right. It's buffalo meat. Like, of course. I was picturing like something that had a little peanut butter or something that was actually good. No, just buffalo. So there is no part of life that tastes good and is good for you. So get used to the part that doesn't taste good. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Right. So I can eat meat, but it's not 16 ounces of beef. It's like 4 to 5 ounces, right? But it has to be grass-fed and finished. Because if the
what's the finished part?
Well, everything's now grass-fed beef, right? But what happens is it's not all the way grass-fed. They'll put grains in there and stuff like that. It's the corn and soy. Like, you've got to avoid, for me, and for a lot of people, is avoiding all corn and soy.
So if I have a steakhouse and I say it's all grass-fed, but it's not.
Well, it may be. You just don't know.
Well, let's just say I tell you it is,
sure.
But it's not. Are you going to feel the difference?
That is a good question. I don't know, because I just don't eat a ton of meat anymore, because it's hard for me to eat it.
Right.
I'm very hydrated after I eat a lot of meat, because I'm chugging water down, or
And
the other thing is, I can't really drink that much anymore. And so Florida just passed the medical marijuana. And so, I do it. First of all, the doctors were trying to prescribe opioids to me to relieve the pain.
Right.
And I just didn't want to do that. And so, now I can do the CBD, THC oils and just drop them in. And it's the same. I mean, it's great. It works. It's been amazing.
For pain relief.
What's
the sensation? Do you get a high off it? You just get the pain relief.
It's like a 1-to-1 ratio.
What's that mean?
So if you're going to smoke a joint, it's probably like a 10-20-1 ratio of THC to CBD.
Oh, I see.
And this is a 1-to-1, and it counteracts, so there's no high.
Right. Interesting. I don't know. I wish I had some pain.
Well, you can get this. It's not that hard.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. It's like there's just stuff everywhere, and I'm like pretty much.
But it's better than taking Advil or Aleve.
Yeah. I never have any pain.
There you go. You're good.
You must hate me. I'm going to go drink later and eat a cow.
No, but in all honesty, I swear to God, this isn't hokey stuff. And since we're on Take a Knee, I'll say this. If you were to go back to 2012 and say, Philip, we can take this all back. You don't have to have this disease. I wouldn't take it. Even if I have a feeding tube in 10 years, man, I've got my family. I'm happy. I don't care. Like, this thing has forced so many positive things on my life that never would have happened. I mean, like, it just forced me to be a better dad, a better husband. And I created a business that, we grew to 8 figures in 3 years. And all of that is because I had to kind of go, I don't know how long I have, so let's go. Well, and that's a good thing.
No, let's talk about that for a minute, because I really do believe seeing examples, which is to say, I grew up with my 2 best friends growing up were sort of specimens. They were big, strapping, muscular guys who were just kind of specimens. Mm-hmm. They didn't have to go to the gym. They didn't have to eat right. They didn't really have to do anything. They just were these big, indestructible guys. Girls loved them. And everything was pretty easy for them. And because things were really easy for them, they just sort of did what they wanted, like almost all the time. Mm-hmm. Like my best friend, Chris, big, strong, strapping guy, girls loved him. He, in the 11th grade, we're playing football, and he was like second team All Valley or something on tight end, and was like starting to get some notices to be recruited to play at the next level kind of thing. And he had girls, and he'd go down to the reservoir with his girlfriend or his other girlfriend, and he was having a good time. And grades stumbled a bit because he wasn't, why study when you can go get a six-pack and go to the lake? And these guys, they were like smoking and drinking all the time. And it was, I was having to like eat 6 hard-boiled eggs and live in the weight room to basically keep up with the team and kind of keep up with them. And they were going to the reservoir and drinking and smoking and banging chicks. And at a certain point, his grades kind of fell apart. And it was said that, look, you got to go to summer school between your junior and senior year over at Van Nuys High. You got to take like 5 weeks or whatever, get a couple units of this, and then you can be eligible to play football your senior year. And, get a college scholarship, And I remember, like, going to his house, like, waking him up a few times, or his apartment, his mom's apartment. Be like, come on, we got to go to church. You got to go, or you're not going to be eligible. And he's like, I'm sleeping in. I'm going to the reservoir, and I'm going to bang my girlfriend. And we never went, and then didn't play football because he was ineligible. And once he wasn't playing football, he wasn't that interested in school, but he had so many girlfriends. He said, screw it. And he just kind of dropped out. And then later on, got into drugs and this, that, and the other. And same with my other friend, just in various ways. And they're alive and they're okay now and that kind of stuff. But it came so easily. It just came so easily to them. They never really had to go grit it out in the weight room and run the bleachers of life, so to speak. And it was like, it was too easy, too early, and too often. And they never really got that whatever it is you need to have that discipline, to have that fire in your belly, to have that work ethic. And I've seen it happen a lot with that sort of big man on campus thing, that guy, check in with the guy when he's 40 and see how he's doing. Mm-hmm. And I believe that the person with the adversity, I feel like people confined to wheelchairs get a lot more done than people that are able-bodied, just because they realize, like, hey, I'm going to have to outwork everybody at this office building in order to get somewhere, or whatever it is. I believe it means a lot. And so I'm glad that you look at this disease as a blessing more than a curse, because everyone else is getting fat and getting drunk. And, you're pulverizing an avocado at 4:30 in the morning. I'm sure driving everyone in the rooms next to you insane.
Totally.
But I mean, you are appreciating the moment. You're appreciating your family. You have a 3% body fat. There are things we talked about the beginning of the podcast. We talked about, driverless cars means no organs, means more technology to create organs. And this is like that thing. This is this sort of thing that creates this thing, right. And this thing's not positive, but it created a positive thing that then creates another thing. And I think people need to focus on that a little more, and just how they're being, like all the people I know who can just eat whatever they want. They never gain an ounce. They never get fat. They never whatever. They don't have as much discipline as the people that have to be careful. And then the discipline isn't just, it's not just in the realm of food. It then bleeds over into all facets of life.
100%. I would tell you, before this disease, I slept till 7:30 every morning, ate whatever I wanted, all that kind of stuff. I get up at 4:30 now, sometimes earlier than that, and work out. This is the one hokey thing, but I do transcendental meditation, which is calm. I have a very active brain. I don't think can ever calm down. So I do meditation in the morning, and then I eat right, and then I really focus and work hard on my relationship, being a dad, like all these things that no one taught me this. No one. My dad, would take me to a basketball game or a football game, but it was what he wanted to do. And, I had to adjust everything. My entire mindset had to change in the way I grew up, and in the way I'd been living my adult life. And maybe there was, the sense of I get to do whatever I want. before that, but not anymore. And now I'm really grateful for every day I have. And I have a much more if I died tomorrow, man, my life is so great right now. I'm very honored to have this life. And I don't know if I thought that way before I had this disease. So it's a blessing. It really is.
Yeah. The question is, as we bring it home, how can you give that sense of appreciation minus the horrible disease? Because we all have this sort of sense where it's like, I have kids. I would like them to have this sense of appreciation and gratitude. I would not like them to have to get a horrible disease in order to earn this sense of gratitude and appreciation. How is it? And I do realize that a lot of it is I've really been kind of realizing the kind of act as if kind of thing Dr. Drew and I have spoken about in the past. You just say out loud, hey, this is good. Got a good thing going here. Got our health, got our family, got this, got that, got a dog, love the dog. You know what I mean? Like there's an element, and it's a two-way street when you work the negative side. And I've been perfectly guilty of doing that in the past, just working. But I literally saw my wife in the garage the other day, and I was heading out to do a show in Arizona or something, and I said something like, hey, plug in that Tesla, get a full charge or something. And she said, yeah. And she said, like, you're in a good mood. And I said, why shouldn't I be? Mm-hmm. We have everything we need. Yes. And it puts you in a better mood just physically saying, yeah, I'm in a good mood.
Totally. It's so hard for people to be proactive. And
yes.
Part of the reason I wrote the book was in response to the disease, but also I kept seeing business owners that could not be proactive.
Fire Them Now, by the way, name of the book.
And
available at Amazon.
That's right.
Sorry, go ahead.
And I just kept seeing people that can't be proactive. I guess that's what I learned, was that I'm constantly thinking about how I can be proactive from a mindset standpoint and grow. Like if I'm to give you one value that defines everything I think about, it's growth.
Right.
I just want to grow. Like that's all I care about. Like if I'm not growing, I am going to be depressed. And so I think with people that don't have a disease or don't have something looking them, down the barrel of a gun, it's that you've got to be proactive. You've got to have a growth mindset. And I think that's the key for me. It's the key to everything. What that means is like, even on my marriage, I spend like an hour a week. I just carve out time and I just think about what I have to do in my own marriage to make it successful and to love my wife the proper way, because it's just not natural. Otherwise, I'm just reacting to our relationship all the time. So,
I've often said, although it's been a little while, I've often said that the thing that's most disappointing about humans is we are the one. We are the one organism that I'm aware of that can really understand, like, look, here's what I can do, here's what I need to do, here's what I could do, and grow. And many, many humans don't engage in that. Like, I talk to people, see people, have my own family members and stuff where it's like, oh, you're taking this to the grave. This is who you're just taking this quality. It's a horrible quality, and you're going off into the sunset with this horrible quality. You don't want to get better. You don't want to improve. You don't want to internalize. You don't want to tweak. Like, and we're all guilty of it to some degree. But I mean, you should be assessing yourself and figuring out ways. I state it as a gin rummy hand. Just take the cards that aren't working for you, discard them, and grab some new cards and keep building the hand. Like you just keep making your hand stronger, but you have to discard. You can't just keep adding stuff to the hand. You have to discard the stuff that's not working. And I don't know how many times I've seen people where I've sort of been like, this thing is not serving you. This is not working for you. Why Why are you so married to this quality, this thing? Oftentimes people call it pride or something like that. It's not pride. You have a quality. It does not serve you. It's been brought up a time or two. It's been the cause of a few bad relationships and a few firings and a few fights with cops or whatever it is. And yet you still cling on to it with both hands.
Yeah, and I've seen this, and you've probably seen this too, being at your age, but people that are in their 70s and 80s, I've just seen this over and over. They've lived like that for so long that they are in that part of their life where they know. They'll never admit it. Maybe it's in their subconscious, but they know that they didn't maximize their life, and there's a massive amount of regret and maybe shame, and I see that all the time. And I see it and I go, whew, I don't want to do that.
No, you don't want to do that. And what you should do is start by Fire Them Now. The 7 lies digital marketers sell, and the truth about political strategies that help businesses win. It's available now on Amazon. If you bookmark us and click through, that'll help my business win.
And we've discounted it for your listeners. The Kindle version's 30% off.
Oh, how about that?
There you go.
Philip, this has been enlightening. In a weird way, I feel like I spent too much time just talking about me and you. Not enough time about the books. We'll have to have you back at some point because
you're good.
I just like where your mind's at, man.
Thanks, man.
And until next time, this is Adam Carolla for Phillip. Is it Stutts?
Stutts.
Oh, sorry. I've been going at it. I'm sleep deprived. Phillip Stutts. Sorry, Phillip Stutts. Go get that book. Fire Them Now. Phillip Stutts saying mahalo.
Congratulations. You're now a better person.
And by the way, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you.
Download more wisdom and inspiration next week on Take a Knee. This is Carolla Digital.